Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.
Welcome to The Local Live. I'm Alina Suriel, and guess who's back?
Hello everybody, I'm Jackie Grosha and really happy to be back here. Welcome to our 20th show.
20th show, wow, time certainly does go fast. Anyway, we're here to bring you up to date with community stories from Larchmont and Mamaroneck.
A couple of weeks ago, we told you about the closure of the Mamaroneck Playhouse Theater. We received 1,520 hits on our YouTube video of Village of Mamaroneck Mayor Norman Rosenblum confirming the shocking news.
So tonight, joining Maura Carlin, our panelists will be talking about the destiny of Mamaroneck's beloved historical landmark. Remember that we encourage you to call, tweet, and email your questions and comments.
Exactly. Here at The Local Live, you tell us and we air it. But before we go to Maura, let's take a quick look of what you will see tonight.
Find out how the Village of Mamaroneck's making Harbor Island Park safer for your children.
And the fight for New York State Governor is just starting. We update you with the latest news on the 2014 gubernatorial race.
And this week's Play of the Week goes to the Mamaroneck boys lacrosse team.
This little girl needs a new home. We'll tell you later how you can adopt her.
Harbor Island Park is the subject of a new recommendation issued by the head of the Parks and Recreation Department. There have been concerns about children slipping under the fence and into the road from the beach pavilion field. As a result, representatives have called for a taller fence.
Fencing all along the road before the pavilion is just not really serving the need to keep our kids safe. It's important to me, and it should be important to the village to know that flag football, soccer, camp, and weekend activities that happen on that field, the kids are being trained and skilled in new sports that may not have existed years and years ago when that fence went in. These balls are constantly going into the roadway, which is supposed to be a walkway. We do currently have handicap spots right in front of the beach pavilion. There are 2 spots. There's also staff parking. Those are very important for the handicapped residents that are trying to access the beach. Residents are driving down this road while camp is going on, turning around when there's not enough parking, constantly going back and forth up and down this road.
If installed according to the recommendations, the new fence system will cost the Village of Mamaroneck as much as $60,000. Although questions were raised about possible alternatives to this solution, the majority of the Board of Trustees voted in favor of it. Remember that you can watch the full municipal meeting online. Just go to www.lmctv.org and go to Videos on Demand.
Continuing our coverage of the 2014 gubernatorial race, Andrew Cuomo is on the offense in a new ad accusing Rob Astorino of housing discrimination.
There's only one county executive in the nation found by the federal government to be in violation of anti-discrimination laws in Westchester County, New York. Meet Rob Astorino. $10 million in penalties for civil rights violations. Threatened by the Department of Justice with contempt for his 4-year refusal to stop discrimination.
Astorino was quick to respond with his own message, directly addressing the governor's statements.
It sadly recalls the type of unseemly campaign tactics with which Mr. Cuomo has long been associated. In 2 unforgivable new television commercials now airing in the New York City media market, Mr. Cuomo effectively calls me and the hundreds of thousands of Westchester and Long Island families racist.
The 2 opponents will have until November to battle it out for the governor's office. We'll keep you posted as we get more information on the 2014 election. Remember, we'd love to hear your comments. Tweet us at The Local Live.
Tune in. Here's Mike Witch's segment, In the Media.
New train schedules taking effect May 11th promise to cut 2 minutes off a ride from here to Grand Central Station, so reports the Journal News. But some outbound trains will take longer, up to 6 minutes more on the New Haven line. Metro North's new president, Joseph Giulietti, aims to make the schedule more reliable. He wants to restore the railroad's credibility, which has come to be known by many for frequent lateness. The railroad said New Haven line customers will experience the greatest number of schedule changes. It all takes effect May 11th. The Mamaroneck Review reprinted a feature story from last year about the Mamaroneck Playhouse, now suddenly shuttered this week by new owners Bowtie Cinemas. Village historian Gloria Pritz tells about seeing the movie King Kong there in 1933. For 15 cents, Gloria and her family saw a featured film, a B-movie, a cartoon, and a newsreel. That was significant because it was the only way people could actually see the news in the days before television. The news article includes memories from Sid Alpert and former theater worker John Thing Thong. There's a towny feel to it, he said. It's a place that you can walk to. You have your slice of pizza, you enjoy the day at Harbor Island, and then you come in for a movie and you go next door for dinner afterwards. You can't beat that experience. Well, now it's closed, but the story is a great read, and it's in this week's Mamaroneck Review. Do you know Donald Robertson? Or maybe you recognize him from Instagram, where he goes by the name Donald Drawbertson. Well, the Daily Voice tells the story of this father of 5 who paints pop art in his Larchmont basement early every morning before going to work. He's the creative director for Estee Lauder Corporation in Manhattan. He's posted thousands of his paintings on Instagram. More than 32,000 people follow him, and he's been compared to Andy Warhol. From The Loop, news that a fantastic, STEM-tastic event is coming to Hommock School on May 3rd. It's a large-scale science and technology festival with hands-on learning experiences and a wide range of opportunities for kids to interact with local STEM experts. It's all funded by the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation. You can learn the basics of circuits with coin cell batteries and LEDs. Meet Mario the Magician, visit the Bio Bus, join in the Nerdy Derby, and build a paper rocket. Dozens of experiences to create, touch, and do, as well as many experts to talk to the kids about careers in biology, computer software, engineering, and others. For information about this special event, contact the STEM Alliance, and their email address is events@lmstemalliance.org. And finally, here's a story from The Patch. Comic book stores around the country are having a free comic book day this Saturday. Locally, Modern Myths on Mamaroneck Avenue is the place to go. Now in its 13th year, Free Comic Book Day started as a way by the comics industry and independent bookstores to get kids away from their video games and reintroduce them to the magic of comic books. Selected comic books that will be given out to shoppers include Archie, SpongeBob, and Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck. Superhero fans can get Batman and Transformers vs. G.I. Joe. There are also previews of new titles if you want to try something different. Well, those are just a few of the stories that caught my attention this week in the media.
Hey guys, you're watching the local live. Stay tuned.
Woo! Yeah.
Hello, I'm Maura Carlin.
And I'm Rebecca Berman. Welcome back to our 20th show. Tonight we will be talking about the fate of Mamaroneck's beloved movie theater. Remember, if you're watching us live and have questions or comments, you can tweet, email, and call us using the contact info on the screen.
That's right, Rebecca. Local moviegoers were shocked by the sudden closing of the Mamaroneck Playhouse movie theater. It's been barely a year since the Bowtie Cinemas bought the 90-year-old institution, along with 40 other Clearview cinemas, feeding hopes of a movie upgrade. Well, last month, Bowtie shut it down, planning to make way for condos. Taken by surprise, Mamaroneck officials and residents are fighting back and speaking out. Joining me tonight are Village of Mamaroneck Mayor Norman Rosenblum, one of the few who's actually spoken to Bowtie reps, Peter Fellows, archivist for the Village of Mamaroneck Historical Society, and Steve Josephson, Vice President of the Mamaroneck Chamber of Commerce. LMC TV contacted Charlie Moss, the CEO of Bowtie Partners, but he had a prior commitment and couldn't join us this evening. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Norman, I'm going to start with you. Obviously, no one can force Bowtie to continue operating a movie theater, but I know you're upset about this. Where do things stand with trying to save the theater?
Well, actually, you have to present the realistic facts first. It's privately held. They are in a C2 zone. They have an as of right, according to the local zoning, to build residence in this case. There's two approaches taking now. And just to go back, I would note, as you said in the very beginning, when they first came to us, they said that their history, their family, is to preserve the theater and movie theaters they own. They're probably the largest of the small type theaters, such as the Village of Mamaroneck, against the multiplexes. But they told us that they were going to invest, clean it up, make a boutique theater out of it where you can serve wine and liquor and food, and you have the stadium type seats, which of course we were very excited about. I'm third generation, and like Gloria Pritz and a lot of other people that have been here, there's a great history to the Village of Mamaroneck, including an ancillary history that the movie industry actually started in the Village of Mamaroneck.
Right, we're going to get back to that
that's fine.
With Peter.
But to get to your question, I guess, they then came to us and said it's not economical, we're going to knock it down. While they do have that right, before what our immediate concern is, they need to have a demolition permit to knock it down. That can be equated to where the regatta is now, is a hole in the ground for close to 10 years, which you don't need. Aesthetically, it's no good, and safety reasons, it's no good. There's also, I believe, a requirement, or there should be a requirement, we're looking at that, for a CEQA type of review and steps to mitigate that building is full of asbestos. You have to also look at for a demolition permit for electrical lines, for gas lines, and so on. And it's also very close to the Mamaroneck River. So that's what we're looking at.
So you're looking at ways to sort of slow down the process.
Correct. And a demolition, there's a reason for it. And in parallel to that, I've requested through their attorney, and I have Ben Morse's email, I've requested that they meet with the Village of Mamaroneck and the Westchester County Industrial Development Agency to not necessarily tell them that you can't build what you want, but perhaps there is public funds so you can have a public-private development where they can build their condos or rental units, whatever it may be, and perhaps have a small cultural theater there.
So you're looking for some other options.
Correct.
Have you
Unfortunately,
set up a meeting?
They have not replied yet. And I believe that part of it may be because they don't want to deal with another bureaucracy. I mean, this is just facing the facts. But it doesn't mean you don't try. If you don't try, it's definitely no. If you keep trying, there's a shot. And the Board of Trustees is also looking at a business overlay, which if we can't do it this time, at least for the future, any development in a business overlay, meaning Mamaroneck Avenue, that you cannot get a demolition permit until you go through the land use process. Okay. That's basically the quick background.
Peter, let's go to you, and you can give us some brief history of the theater, which has been around a long time.
Yes. I would say the idea goes back for the Playhouse to about 1921. Mamaroneck was mad for movies. They had the Auditorium Theater, which was just a little bit down. We were just talking about that. Was it at Miller's or Ralph's, but in that area. And this fellow, John Lynn, said, I'd like to put a grand theater seating 1,200 people here. It was passed by the Board of Trustees in 1921. And about in the next spring, they got a contractor and they started to build. But a year later, he ran into debt. But Mamaroneck citizens wanted this so much that they formed a company and they paid their own money to get stocks in it to build this new building. Unfortunately, John Lind was in such financial difficulties that he committed suicide. So that threw a wrench into the thing. But the Mamaroneck citizens didn't give up. They just kept trying different things, and it was resolved, and they were all set to go when, unfortunately, the government stepped in. And they said, well, we think John Lynn owes us $1 million in back taxes in 1923. They said. So they put a lien on it. It took another 2 years. December 1925, they finally opened. And that's when they started.
Wow. But so this was really built on Mamaroneck, at least money, if not blood and sweat.
Absolutely, absolutely. The citizens fully supported this. They were crazy for the movie theater, crazy for movies. It's been that way forever.
Steve, what's the Chamber of Commerce's role in all of this?
Well, I'm sitting here talking to you and on behalf of all the commercial facilities and stores that are on both Mamaroneck Avenue, Boston Post Road, East and West. And I have no objection to them building a condo or an apartment house. I believe it's going to be either 4 or 5 floors. But I think that downstairs, they should keep it as a movie theater, whether it be 2 theaters, 3 theaters, 4 theaters, you know, holding 50, 60 people makes no difference as long as they keep the name of the Mamaroneck Movie House, Playhouse on Mamaroneck Avenue, which has been around for about 90 years. People look forward to going to the movies, people look forward to shopping, people look forward to going to restaurants, either before or after having a little dessert. And the more people that we keep in Mamaroneck Avenue, the better off we are. And we are a hot commodity right now in Mamaroneck, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Is there a grassroots movement to save the theater beyond what your mayor was talking about?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know that. I mean, I tried myself to call the Bowtie Cinemas, left 3 or 4 messages, cannot get through to anybody. Someone gave me another phone number, tried calling there, could not get any answers.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you. I believe you had a question?
Yes, we do. Our question is, this is for the mayor. Proposal, it's a lengthy question that the person has sent, so I've kind of summarized it. They want to know if there's a proposal to require an approval from the Land Use Board for the movie theater.
Go ahead. You said that you're thinking about it?
That's a process I would have to. Any development in the village of Mamaroneck has to go before Land Use Board. As I printed out to look at different things, it's in a C2 zone, and the C2 zone is tied into the C1 description. Residents are allowed in that, and in any development like that goes to the planning board for site review. First, of course, they go to the building department to get a permit. Even with the demolition, they're going to have to meet certain requirements, as I noted before. And that will go process.
And this isn't new. This is already on the books.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you would have absolutely no control. That's what the purpose of zoning is. So they are allowed. But of course, then the planning board in the site review will look at it, and they may be able to limit the size and so on. But they can't, in essence, prevent them from building it. But I would note the only positive thing, if it's positive, to me it's whole negative because it's going to knock it down. But they plan on keeping, allegedly, of course they told us something different in the beginning too, but to keep the outside marquee, the outside facade, and keep the 2 stores and perhaps another 2 stores where, if you're familiar with the movie, in the entrance, movie theater, where you go down where the ticket office was to up to the entrance where you bought all the condiments, that will stay. And they'll have doors into those stores. But beyond that, that's what they're going to knock down. You have to realize,
the stores on Mamaroneck Avenue, the ones who were told their leases would not be renewed?
Theoretically, they will stay there. The rest of the building, and people don't realize, go in the back and CVS parking lot. That's a 5-story building. It's one of the bigger buildings in the village of Mamaroneck and a very large footprint. They will be limited to staying on that footprint. Of course, they're going to have to look at parking. There's a height requirement. You can't build and so on. It leads to the point that we talked about this, whether it be Hampshire or Mamaroneck or any other development on Mamaroneck Avenue, whether it be TOD. Any municipality does not.
TOD?
Transit-oriented development.
Okay.
That's a rezoning that the village is looking at from Mamaroneck Station to Mamaroneck Avenue School in that area, to rezone it to make it sense where you have a development of both retail and residential. And one of the key, because it'll fit into the point I'm trying to make, is that you're not going to gentrify the area, you're going to keep it. Because one of the best attributes this village has is diversity, more so than any other community around here, and that's why we remain #1. you have to follow the rules and regulations, and that's what it comes down to.
Would they be allowed to demolish the building and let it sit there while, demolish a whole while they get their plans together?
Once they get the demolition permit, they would be able to do that. That's why we're looking to have what's called a business overlay. So like I said in the very beginning, that a situation like this, you would have to go through the land use, in this case the planning board first, before you can knock it down. Because
but that's already on the books. That's not new. Or is
no,
that what you're
that's
proposing?
not on the books.
That's what you're proposing.
What you can do now is for the demolition permit, you can require certain things, asbestos abatement, and possibly a CEQA and so on, stuff like that, protection.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, as it was a lengthy question, and the last piece of her question was, were you opening up, is the village being opened up to litigation in the course of...
For unfairly targeting
Right.
one particular owner.
No, we're not targeting anyone. We're talking about what you're talking about would be spot zoning. There's no such thing as spot zoning. We would get in trouble if we turned around and changed the zoning, which only the Board of Trustees can do as the legislators. Then it's adverse possession in essence. You're taking away the value, you would be sued. They have the as of right in the C2 zone. But the village also has the responsibility through its land use boards and building department, especially the planning board, to make sure it fits within the guidelines. And they have some leeway as to the effect of aesthetics, the impact of traffic, and so on. So they just can't go out and build willy-nilly what they want. They say they want 36, 38 units. They could end up with 22. I don't know. So I'm not saying those numbers to be
right. No,
looked
I understand. People talk about, refer to the Playhouse as, historical landmark. Is it landmarked? And
No.
if so, is it protected?
Unfortunately, that was the first thing we looked at to go through the landmark process. First of all, we have a landmark commission that's never been filled. There's no meeting for them to do. Even if we had to go through it, and we had our village attorneys check this out, it'll never happen because in this case, you need a written permission, a letter from the landowner to have it landmarked. The only, I believe, landmarks in the village of Mamaroneck, one is a federal, which is Walter's Stand, hot dog stand, and the other one, ironically, right, is Joe Manitti's building, which is the old bank building on the corner of the Post Road, right across the street from the Regatta. But other than that, you can't do it.
Lancey's not a landmark?
No.
We talked to him about that. But even when you're landmarked, that does not prevent you from doing what you want with the building.
At the outside, you keep.
Even that you're allowed to change according to what I read. You're simply registered on the registry. But that would be wonderful if they would keep the outside. But I think there's more to it than that. We talked a bit about the history of the place. But I think it's like waking up one morning and not having any memory past last week who you are. That's crazy. Right. And the village is like a wandering historic amnesiac that is losing parts of itself every single day in all sorts of different ways. And we don't seem to be able to do anything to stop it. These people, I mean, it's an innate human need. You say, I've lived my life, I've loved my family, I've labored, I want to pass something on to them, some sort of legacy, something that says, hey, I was here. That's what those citizens of Mamaroneck did when they built that playhouse, which was state-of-the-art, the finest in the country.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate on you, though. There are a lot of people who think the theater's a dump, who don't want to go in there.
Well, they never took care of it. They didn't put money into it.
Well, Bowtie's only had it barely a year, right?
You can do a lot in 1 year to fix it up.
Okay. And to go back to the other side, the press release when they were buying the theaters a year ago was that they planned to invest in all of these theaters that they were taking over. So point taken on that.
What they say and what they do is two different things.
It's a catch-22, goes in full circle, and then it goes back to their right. I mean, the shock was that they didn't come as Bowtie Cinema, and they came, and when they told us their plans, all of a sudden we found out there's Bowtie Cinema, and then there's Bowtie Real Estate Division. The Real Estate Division is doing this, not Bowtie Cinema. But to get back to the pertinent point you just mentioned, while they certainly have a right to do it, and to the very point I was talking about before, that you have to continue to grow so you don't die from atrophy. But while you continue to grow, one of the key factors is you don't change the character of the village. That's why people moved here. I mean, you can look to develop parkland, you can look to develop, for allowable use. Allowable uses within zoning and everything else. But we don't want to be in Urshela or White Plains. We don't want, 60-story buildings because people didn't move here for that. So that's the key, and that's the shame, is what you're losing is part of the character of the village. Now, you
said that's circumscribed how tall they can go, and I mean, I said the footprint. There are limits, right?
But the existing footprint is probably what they will build. But you're losing the history, and you're losing. So what you're looking to do is not look. It's still America. You have freedoms. They're landowners. They have every right to develop what they want to do. So you would hope that they have some type of sense of community, even though they're the biggest in the Northeast, and who knows what they care about locally. At least perhaps work with the community to see what the options are. We're not saying you have to commit to it, but at least talk to us. That's all I'm saying.
I apologize. There's a question that keeps popping up from various people regarding how will parking for the new residents be handled?
People are concerned that there's already not enough parking around the avenue.
That I agree. It'll get into another subject. My favorite subject is building tier parking. But aside from that, right now, my understanding is when they first came and discussing with the village planner what's allowable, who was Bob Galvin, who was on a planning board for 30 years and chairman for 10. Right now, they probably have enough room for on-site parking. That building is so big they can build the parking inside on the first floor. But again, that's one aspect that the planning board would look at as part of what you call the site plan review. And they are required, as you look in here, they tell you what the FAR is, which is the floor area ratio. That tells you how much area they can build for living space. And according to that, it then determines how many parking spaces they have to have.
Okay. You were going to say something, Steve.
The highest you can go is 50 feet on a building?
I believe 50 feet is the current.
Either 4 or 5 stories.
Well, figure 10 feet a story.
10 feet, right.
Yeah.
Have you had any conversation? You tried to reach them, but you haven't been able to speak with them.
I tried to reach them. I had a few phone numbers. I got one the other day. I called that number. No answers. Not even a recording.
Has anyone that you know of approached them about trying to buy it to preserve it?
There are people that I have spoken to, and I tried to put them in contact with their attorney. It's the best way to do it. One of the keys, I think, while this is somewhat or a lot emotional, you have to believe or take the approach. I do contracts for a living. You don't want to be adversarial. Yeah. If you're adversarial, they're not going to talk to you at all. But I've had 2 individuals that represent large construction companies, developers, live in the village of Mamaroneck, have the financial wherewithal that point blank said, I would like to go in, be their partner, put enough money in where just where the concept came, build apartments they want to build and keep a small, if one theater type thing for a cultural event. It's also an attraction. I mean, while we have restaurants and everything else, the village of Mamaroneck is so hot now that, like on Hoyt Avenue, we just attracted the halftime beer distributors. Yes. That's the largest in the United States. And they, in turn, are contributing to the community, and they're going to have a beer festival. Right next door, you have the glass factory, the glass works that moved. The main headquarters is still in Portland, I believe, where it is on the West Coast. But the village of Mamaroneck is now garnering international attention from all over the world from attractions like that. So the irony is, I guess the best way to say it is I just came running in here from At Home on the Sound, which was a group started in 2010. And their theme is to keep senior citizens and people at home in the village of Mamaroneck and Larchmont and so on. And this has grown so much that they just sold out. They probably had 200, 300, maybe 400 people there in their event. And this is what you want to do. And this is the exact opposite of what's happening in the village of Mamaroneck. And to make it even worse, as we noted before it even started, the Archdiocese now said that they are looking to close down Holy Trinity Church, another major large area. Now what happens? Across the street you have part of the LWRP question is directors. Now part of directors is in Chapter 11. I don't know what it is now. So there is potential to change the character of Village of Mamaroneck.
And then you have the Delancey House as well.
And the Delancey House.
Right.
But at least in the Delancey House you have the owner who would be working with them and said, because I went to school with them, I graduated high school with the Shimalecki family. Yeah. And they work very nicely with the historical side and everybody else. Take the house, move it. We'll give it to you for free.
Is that like the same idea as that schoolhouse that's on the harbor side, where they actually moved it there?
Well, actually, what I suggested to Carol Aiken is that if you can raise the money, grab the house, buy the property, and take the schoolhouse, move there, and have an entire, historical area there, which would be great.
Right.
You know, there are potential people in the village of Mamaroneck that have the contacts and the wherewithal, that if they could be organized and be made aware and interest, I believe there are realistic offers that could be made to both that site and also perhaps even the movie theater. But very realistically, I'm not that optimistic about it.
Well, let me ask a question. Does the building standing raise any public safety or hazard issues? Like, you know, is there a danger to leaving it up? Is it in that level of disrepair?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you would have to have an engineer through it and everything else. If that were the case, the building department and the engineer would be directed to go in and check it out, as would the fire department. You have every right to make sure that an existing structure is not a danger. The danger is, I believe, twofold. One is during a demolition, as I said before, whether it be asbestos or gas or any other unknown thing, and the closeness to the Mamaroneck River. Right. And then beyond that is if everything's successful, it could take a year and a half, 2 years. You don't want an empty hole as an attractive
I'm going to
nuisance.
interrupt you because...
We have a call.
Right. Caller, go ahead. Are you there, caller?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, how you doing? Mr. Mayor, my question is for you. You mentioned before how, like, it wasn't Bowtie Cinema that bought the theater, it was Bowtie Real Estate. And what I'm curious about is how a red flag wasn't thrown up when it was realized that it was real estate versus the cinema purchasing the theater.
Okay, I don't know if you heard the question.
No.
The caller said if you, meaning all of us, knew that it was Bowtie Real Estate that bought the property as opposed to Bowtie Cinema, should that have thrown up a red flag?
I think what you said was that Bowtie Cinemas purchased this theater.
Correct.
But when this idea came up, it was Bowtie Realty suddenly appeared.
It's the same company. Yes. It's a division of Bowtie. It's not one of the other. And even if that was the case and we knew about it, you might have been able to take some action then. But again, you can't do spot zoning or the concept of spot zoning and change it just that specific. You have to have, in essence, an overlay of the entire area. And again, you don't want to be adversarial. You want to work with these people.
Right.
You know, the other thing is that we asked them specifically, well, how about Larchmont?
Well, I was just going to raise that with you, actually.
Geniuses think alike, right? We were told, I can't verify it, but they told us directly, they do not own that theater. They own the lease. And once that lease is up in a year, who knows what's going to happen in Larchmont. They also said in the beginning, they were thinking of which theater they're going to do first. Would they pick the village of Mamaroneck to do the boutique theater, or would they pick Larchmont and so on? And obviously, the theater in Mamaroneck is so much bigger. I mean, I remember as a kid going there, and it was, you know, before they divided it up.
Right.
Right. It's a Broadway theater, and the shame of it is that theater is still there. The stage is there. Even quote the asbestos curtain.
I'm going to ask you the, I guess, non-political, very political question. Do you feel like you were misled?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Absolutely. I don't think that if it was other than this one instance, I wouldn't be able to say that. However, after this whole thing came about, I went online and started doing a little research, and I found, which I did send to different newspapers and reporters that have been asking me questions, there is an exact description of what they now plan to do versus what they told us they were going to do, and the date was 2013. So they knew 6 months ago what they were going to do. Yeah. But again, I don't want to make these guys, you know, adversarial. I want them to come to the table. You know, they have an as of right and so on. But hopefully, you know, we can. This is a family that we were told, and I believe it, is either 3 or 4 generations, and started out with theaters in New York. They branched out into legitimate theaters, and they branched out into movie theaters. And also being realistic to the fact that this type of theater versus the multiplexes are disappearing throughout the entire United States. One, because it would cost a tremendous amount of money just to bring it up to digital. All films are now in digital, so they would have to fix that up.
So the whole operating system has to change.
The concept. Say they're going out. But don't come in the beginning and say, you know, mislead us saying, like, this is what we're going to do. Because if it came about that, in fact, it was not a good idea. Financially, it's understandable. But how can it be not financially if your goal was over 6 months ago to do exactly what you're doing now? So hopefully they'll see what this theater means to the village. Another important point, I said, you plan on flipping this? And they said, no, they plan on keeping this building. So part of the conversation that we had is, well, they're going to try and incorporate as many of the aspects of the village, of the theater into the entrances and the hallways and so on. I'm sure there a lot of things have disappeared even when when United owned it and Cinemax. But it still will not replace or they're not recognizing the impact that this has on the village. And I can tell you something, a lot of people probably don't care, but it's the same people that do care are the people that make up the character of the village of Mamaroneck.
Well, let's broaden this discussion for a moment, and we'll come back, unless you have a question for us.
No, I think that during our conversation you have actually answered one or two other questions that had come in. So.
Well done.
Politicians talk a lot, you know.
But let's go to the broader question of, what's happening in the community. And I'm going to take the town, put the town and the village of Larchmont in it also. We've got housing stock that's roughly 100 years old, and they're coming down, and people are putting up, builders are buying them and putting up new homes. I got one right near me and another one that's supposedly coming down to put in a swimming pool. So what does that say about us, and is there a reason for us to stop it? If that's what buyers want.
There is a reason. It depends. You jump in on from a historical viewpoint, but just very quickly, not to dominate the conversation, that's the purpose of zoning. That's how you keep the character of your village, by zoning. Your zoning are rules and regulations that allow you and tell you what you can and cannot build. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're also looking to rezone the entire industrial area, but that is to get more relief for the homeowners because your budget, most of it is based on real estate-based tax. And your diversity is threatened because the lower income strata is threatened and I have to move out. And that you don't want. So if you get industrial type of development, not actually industry, but like a boutique hotel or a swimming pool or something like that, you increase your tax base and you help the people stay here. But even then, you want to keep the character, which is historical, is your area. Historical.
But what Norm's approach is exactly right, because there are outcomes for the theater which will satisfy all parties. They are definitely there, and by being non-adversarial, but saying, what can we do? Here are some ideas. I actually feel optimistic because it's a family business, because they have a tradition. And what they do here in Mamaroneck will echo throughout the United States where they own their other theaters and properties.
That's a lovely view, but if they don't come to the table, It doesn't matter what wonderful ideas you have.
You keep reaching out, you do what you can, and sometimes that's all you get. But you keep reaching out in every single way as you were doing that you can think of. We don't know why they're not coming to the table. We don't know what is going on there. We don't know what struggles they have. We don't know what they're facing, what they have to deal with. So anything we can give them, even if it's not official contact, which helps them come to the realization or to the capability of responding in a positive way, it's up to us to do. We can only do our best.
Right. Otherwise, they say no. No is no. I mean, unless you ask.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here because I feel, first of all, I'm a very positive type of person. And I spoke to our mayor, and I mentioned to him about me becoming aboard and, having some views about it. And he says, listen, all views are better than no views, okay? And I just feel that it's very positive, that I'm hoping that when they come to the table, we can have some kind of compromisation saying we will do both, have a movie theater and having the housing.
What is the timetable on what happens next officially?
Well, officially they have not even come for a demolition permit yet. But we were told, quite honestly, when we did meet about a month ago, they're planning to go before and file their site plan before the planning board in June. So you have approximately another month.
Somebody has just sent a Twitter question, and it's kind of right in relation to what you just said. They have another month. They're asking, we need to convince Bowtie that a retail/cultural anchor is vital to our economic health.
Well, the economic health that's going to determine is Bowtie's economic health. Let's be honest about it.
Right.
Again, you come back to this is America. People that own their property have a certain right within the existing rules to do it. And we've gotten several, and like Steve said, there's a tremendous amount of ideas back there. But who are we to tell Bowtie how to spend their money? But what we have to do, I think one of the major stumbling blocks is, even if we can come in with the county and with the IDA, that in itself may scare them because that's another level of bureaucracy that they're looking at. They're already going to have to face the land use boards, particularly the planning board. So if you bring in the county, they may say, well, what are we going to get into? We already have a right. What do we have to gain? So hopefully we can make presentations through the back door, through their attorney, through other people contacting them directly as developers and co-developers if they're interested. Say, look, these are options. It doesn't cost you anything. You're not committed. Just look at it. It may cost you by not looking at it. So that's your hope.
Can the village, the infrastructure, handle another condo development on the avenue?
Absolutely.
That's not a problem.
You could turn all the existing buildings, if the owner so chooses, within existing zoning and sort of gut it and keeping the structure and redo it again within, as long as you don't once you knock a building down, see that building is now, I would say, is non-conforming. Once you knock it down, then you have to go by the existing zoning. And that zoning will tell you what you can and cannot build. Actually, to the point, that's exactly what we want to do on that stretch under the TOD from the railroad bridge to Mamaroneck Avenue School. You have to remember, I believe that the Village of Mamaroneck Business District is more than from the Post Road to where Amelia does the railroad bridge. It should go all the way down to Barry Avenue, up to the Post Road, Halsted Avenue, go down to Post Road again, which would be perfect, illustrated by the wine trail on Sunday, because that's where you're going around, and that's what it is.
You got to plug in for the wine trail.
Absolutely.
Can't get it at the theater. You may as well go on the trail.
But
you have something?
We have another question. Somebody's concern is, what about the kids? What are the kids going to do there on Saturday nights when there's nothing left to do?
Well, one of the questions, actually we were talking about this. I graduated high school in 1960, give you an idea. I'm 71 years old. That entire time, it's an age-old question. What are the kids going to do? Particularly the kids between the teens, the tweens,
right,
between 12 and 16. Once you're 16, you have a car and you drive around and you go with your friends. But we noted the other night on Mamaroneck Avenue, which maybe 8 to 10 years ago, adults didn't want to walk down, particularly women, because they would be accosted and so on. The Village of Mamaroneck is so successful now with the restaurants that parents are not afraid to have their kids. And we went down Saturday night, and I can tell you there must have been 200-300 kids. Really? Very well behaved. They're walking back and forth. Of course, that also leads to something else is, do you have a teen center? We tried with the teen center, but the problem with the teen center is, and I know as a teen, I would do the same thing. If there's an adult there, as a chaperone, I'm not going to go. What do I want to do it for?
Well, but these smaller theaters like Larchmont and Mamaroneck, a parent is more likely to let their 12-year-old go alone than to go to a big multiplex in a city.
Absolutely.
And especially it's in a good neighborhood where they don't have to worry about it, and it's easy for them to pick them up or drop them off.
Right. That's a good point. That but you don't have to keep a movie theater just to have a place for the kids to hang out.
It's not going to be tragic. It's tragic only to the extent that you're losing history. And you are losing a certain social aspect of going to the movies, whether it be your first date or just going to dinner and going out for a movie. I think Bowtie is missing out on that, and I disagree with their findings because I believe that the Village of Mamaroneck has enough visitors. Yes. We've estimated conservatively the Village of Mamaroneck has over 2 million visitors a year. So that's enough. And you will have more as the village develops.
As we're running out of time, I'm going to ask a more personal question to each of you. What memory do you have of going to the Mamaroneck Playhouse?
Well,
Steve?
I'm in this community 19 years, and I know my wife, myself, my children, we've gone to the Mamaroneck Playhouse and seen movies there, and I always meet people, local people, and we have a good time. I go out to either before for dinner and afterwards to maybe a place for a little dessert. So it would be, fond memories. And
Family
great
time.
times, correct.
Peter?
To me, it's a key. It's a key to the character of Mamaroneck. It isn't simply a building. It's all of those people who were so involved in it, who were so committed to making it happen, all of the things that happened in their life. You walk there and you say, gee, Johnny Carson was here.
Was he?
Well, it is thought that he was there, but in disguise when he did a magician's act. You think of all of the Broadway shows which did their tryouts here first.
They did?
In Mamaroneck, yes.
And then went to Broadway.
Then they went to Broadway.
When was this?
Probably
Throughout the
20s.
history of
In
it.
the
yes.
20s?
30s.
Yes, yes.
That
That is
the Gishes lived here.
that is
Barrymore's
all part
lived
of
here.
it.
D.W. Griffith.
That's what you would. That's what would disappear. It's like losing parts of yourself because Norm's absolutely right. Life moves forward, but it can move forward in a way that's harmonious, that holds on to what's the best about the past.
What about your memory?
They're more social than anything else. I remember
That's
as
what
a
I
kid
was looking
going,
for.
It was the best. You used to go for a quarter. I won't tell you what we did sometimes with 5 of us chipping in, but we used to go and you would see 2 movies for a quarter. Tom Mix, Tom Mix, Gene Autry, stuff like that. You would watch Movie Tone, and then you would also have the cartoons. So we would, all morning, and you see your friends, and it was just absolutely fantastic.
You know, guys, I was really looking for first date, first kiss, that kind of stuff.
Well, that's when you went up. That's when you got older. You went up in the balcony, and you never saw the movie anyway. So who cared? And there was characters. There was a woman when you were a child. We called her Big Irma. And she used to walk around with a flashlight and go after all the little kids. Yes. But I'm sure she's probably smaller than I am now. But, as a concept as a child, I mean, it proves the history. And there's a social fabric that represents. And you're going to lose that social fabric.
Any last words, guys, before we close out for tonight?
Yeah, keep our fingers crossed that they consider some alternatives.
Okay.
And I have a positive outlook.
Yes. You all seem to have a positive outlook. We are out of time, and I want to thank you, Village of Mamaroneck Mayor Norm Rosenblum, Peter Fellows, who is the archivist for the Mamaroneck Historical Society, and Steve Josephson, who is a vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. I can't believe I got that right. They've been here graciously responding to your questions and comments.
And remember that if you have any ideas for future roundtable discussion, you can write us at thelocallive@lmc-tv.org or tweet us at thelocallive. We love hearing from our viewers.
We thank all of you for participating. For Rebecca Berman, the staff and volunteers of The Local Live, I'm Maura Carlin.
Can I put in one plug?
Go ahead, Norman.
The Village of Mamaroneck is looking to move LMC TV as an integral part of the democratic process into the old hook and ladder. If you're out there and you like LMC TV, please write to my office in the Village of Mamaroneck, also to the town of Mamaroneck and the Village of Larchmont, saying you support the idea. Thank you.
So anyway, we will see you. We hope you'll join us next week when I'll be speaking with County Legislator Catherine Parker and Justice and Lawyer Christy Derrico. In honor of Mother's Day, we'll be hitting some hot parenting issues.
Very nice.
Stay tuned. We'll come right back with more community stories.
I'm trustee Andres Bermudez Hallstrom, and I love watching The Local Live on Thursdays.
This week in sports, the Mamaroneck boys lacrosse team hosted Albany CBA, and star Reed Malice showed off his goal-scoring skills in the LMC Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
Now behind the net, that's Reed Malice. Malice with room, and he scores. No problem. And there's the 5th of the game for the Mamaroneck Star.
He just rolled that one in, saw goalie clearly not in position to stop a rolling shot, and just snuck it in on the corner. That was very well done by Malice.
And now it's time for our community story of the week. Today's community event is Green Up Day, making the Village of Mamaroneck's parks and waterways a cleaner place. Check out this clip.
Village of Mamaroneck residents gathered at Harbor Island Park this week
to kick up some garbage at the Clean Up Green Up Festival.
We want to thank everybody for being here for our 6th annual village-wide Village of Mamaroneck Cleanup. Every year it's wonderful because we've seen the results of our action. Our first year we cleaned up between 12 and 14 tons of debris. I'm here with our trustee Leon Kotox, trustee Andres Bermudez-Holstrom, trustee Alyssa Miller, and our fine members of the Committee for the Environment.
As you can see, this year the cleanup is a great success, and there's a lot of people helping down here at the harbor as well as many other locations all throughout Mamaroneck. So it's a great community effort, especially for the younger ones who will really benefit from this cleanup for years to come.
This year marks the 2nd anniversary of the Marine Education Center.
Earlier, the question came up, how do you start a little Marine Education Center? Work a plan, put it in place, and get it done and build it and then open.
When the flags are flying, the Marine Education Center is open, so come on inside to learn about horseshoe crabs and all the other animals that live in the harbor.
Hi.
Hi.
I love your outfit.
I love your outfit.
Thank you.
We're on the local live here at the Westchester Tattoo Convention. And you are?
I'm Catherine.
Hi, Catherine. This is Jerry here reporting live from the local live.
Meet our pet of the week, Morgan. She's 6 years old and was found wandering in the cold. We think that she recently nursed a litter of puppies. She's friendly and very clever, with a repertoire of tricks including roll over, high five, catch, down, and sit. For information on how to adopt her, contact the New Rochelle Humane Society at www.newrochellehumanesociety.org. Let's watch Morgan show us some of her tricks.
Morgan, and she's going to show everybody her tricks. Down, roll over. Good girl. Catch. Good girl.
Hey, what a good girl.
Shake. No. Down. Paw. Other paw. Down, roll over. Good girl. Sit down. Catch. Good girl.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week for more exciting community news.
Hey out there, if you're interested in getting involved with the local live, all the information you need is in our webpage, www.lmctv.org/thelocallive.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Tell us what you think and help us discover new story ideas.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.